Hello and welcome to another edition of the Forza Napoli podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fischetti. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. On today's episode, we are going to review Napoli's opening match of the season, a 2-0 victory over Sassuolo. We're also going to touch a little bit on the Mercato. There's still a few days left, and there are quite a few rumors still flying around. Some players that seem pretty likely to come, others that we're not so sure. So we'll touch on that before the Mercato wraps up. And I am joined by a guest to help me out with all of that. He is the social media manager for the Napoli Club Toronto, Daniel Del Grosso. Welcome back.
Hey, Joe. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Everyone's getting their first YouTube appearance. So,
I have to make sure I looked okay for the camera, you know.
You're a young guy. You look fine. But, it's... For those who have been listening to the pod, the audio version for a while, they're finally getting to see some of the people that they've been hearing for a number of years. So that's nice. But let's talk about this Sassuolo match. I think the first thing I really want to get into is the lineup and the formation, because this has been a big subject, I guess, of debate. We've all been kind of guessing, how's Conte gonna make it work with four midfielders that all should be starting, and in a traditional 4-3-3, one of them would get left out. We saw that he lined up in a 4-1-4-1 formation to get all of those guys onto the pitch. Just what were your thoughts on the lineup and the formation in general?
Yeah, so heading into even just the match, when we first signed KDB, the first question was okay, are we going to bench someone? Because our midfield's already really good. You can argue one of the best in Italy, maybe one of the best in Europe. Adding KDB, you're okay, all of a sudden we got this world-class player, one of the best midfielders in our generation. How are we going to fit him in? And I go, you know what? Instead of me trying to figure out 40 different ways to we can fit him in, I go, I'll trust Conte with that. And I felt like he was at one point maybe potentially going to switch to even a 4-2-3-1, where you have McTominay on the left side and then KDB in the middle. But once the preseason started, we saw, and even a couple episodes prior, you guys were talking about formations, and Vin made a very good point about the 4-4-1-1, or even if you want to consider maybe a 4-5-1 at times, 4-4-1-1 mainly. I'm you know what? It kind of makes sense, because the way Napoli attacked even just the Mercato, after we didn't sign Nadoy, and then our only form of, say, a winger was Lang, and even just relying on Neres to take that next step, I kind of figured okay, you know what? McTominay, what's his strength? He's very good when he has his back towards defenders or just towards the opponents, strong on the ball. He can ball crash. And then even with KDB, all of a sudden you play him kind of behind, say, Lucca, or even if Lukaku, when he's healthy, you play him behind Lukaku. He can drift in. He can play as a number 10, but he can also come out and play as a number 8, even as a number 6, where we saw at times at Sassuolo. So I'm you know what? The more I was thinking about it, the more the sense of, I kind of like McTominay in that role, that he can even swap places, even with KDB, in terms of him going up and then KDB dropping back, or KDB going wide, McTominay in the box, and then McTominay out wide, which his strength is shooting the ball, running with the ball, especially for a player of his size. He's very good at winning fouls, and that's one thing that we saw even against Sassuolo. And I'm well, you know what? This could work in future runs and stuff as well.
That's definitely something I noticed as well, where while everyone had positions, especially KDB and McTominay were very fluid, and they were kind of playing off of each other. So if KDB dropped to show for the ball, let's say if we're building out of the back, then McTominay played more as a left winger or a bit higher up the pitch. Stramaccione described him as a false left winger, which is a role that he played kind of near the end of last season when we had the injuries and Raspadori was playing up top. And that's where, I'm going to get into a bit of a tactical analysis on the whole lineup and the formation, but that's where a lot of what we saw was, while it was different on paper, was nothing really that novel for Conte's team, especially because of the way we played at the end of last season. And the two of them interchanged positions a lot. If McTominay went more central, then De Bruyne moved out wide. If one dropped, the other stayed high, and vice versa. So I thought that was really interesting, and it still protected all the other kind of principles that Conte uses. Let me switch to a tactical analysis a few slides that I kind of just put together to help explain, because on paper this was a 4-1-4-1 formation, and that seems like it's a little bit odd, but in reality, as we're going to see as I walk through this, and just bear with me, Danny, because this might take a minute, but you'll see that it's a lot of the same stuff that we're really used to, which is actually a good thing, because it's not this like revolutionary kind of thing. So if we start in possession, again, what we see is, and this is typical Conte, certainly during his time at Napoli, is first we see the fullbacks shifting very wide and getting a little bit higher up the pitch. And again, this is when we're building out of the back. So let's say we're starting with the ball from goal kick, or, long ball is picked up by Meret. The center backs then shift or spread apart so that Lobotka can drop in between the center backs to receive the ball. Anguissa and De Bruyne, or sometimes Anguissa and McTominay, then also drop to show for Lobotka. And then the wingers have a few different options. They can stay where they are, just stay up wide and hug the touch lines. They can make the run to open up for a long ball. And I should caveat that these are, I'm showing kind of like a mirror image, but obviously you wouldn't have both doing it at the same time. You're not going to have McTominay and Politano making runs at the same time, because they're on opposite sides of the pitch. If anything, one of them, if Politano, let's say, is making a run for a long ball, McTominay is probably going to shift more into the middle of the park. They could also cut in and show for the ball and give another passing option to the midfielder who is playing the ball. So this kind of shows how they move, and what you see is that really it ends up looking like a 3-4-3 with Lobotka now playing effectively as a center back, even though obviously he's not, and the two fullbacks playing more like wing backs, and then we still have McTominay as that false left winger and Politano on the right wing. Then as we progress the ball forward, I don't have too much on the progression, but just wanted to highlight that one thing we saw quite a bit from Conte's team was the center backs coming into the middle of the park, and that's something we saw a lot from Di Lorenzo last year, and I think this is really just to give us a numerical advantage in the middle of the park, which is where you want to control the match. And then if we move into the attacking phase, what we see is obviously Lucca is going to go into the area. The wingers are going to push forward as well, but they're going to come inside a little bit to open up the space for the fullbacks to overlap. Again, you're not going to do this on both sides at the same time. I'm just showing you both options on the left and the right. And then everybody else is going to get forward. And that's important because Conte always stresses that we attack as a team and we defend as a team. And what that does is it puts us in a position where the center backs are supporting the attack and playing the offside or at around midfield. Obviously, you can't go offside in your own half. But it's also positioning us for defending. And I don't know what you want to call this. Like here, it kind of looks like a 3-6-1. But you could easily see, if the wingers get forward, then it's a more traditional 3-4-3. Or what we often see as well is one of McTominay and or De Bruyne getting into the area as well, and then it kind of looks like a 3-5-2. So that's kind of the tactical setup in the attacking phase or in possession. Out of possession, it's really quite simple, and it's practically identical to what we saw last season, where again, if we start from that last kind of 3-5-2, what we see is Rachmani will shift a little bit towards the middle so that Di Lorenzo can drop and become the third center back. And then Politano, as we've become accustomed to, becomes basically your right back or your right wing back, and Oliveira becomes the left wing back. And then everybody else drops a little bit. So Lucca will drop a little. Obviously, if it's like a goal kick, you can't be inside the area. And De Bruyne will step up so that we're pressing with two people, with Lucca and De Bruyne, and then the midfielders will all kind of form a line of three in the middle of the park. So when you play that out, when we're pressing high, say like on a goal kick, we're now defending in a 5-3-2. And then the players go from there. So if, let's say the press is beaten, well, here you can see how we press, right? Like everyone can go in different directions. And one thing I wanted to highlight as well is that it was a really aggressive press. I think, Danny, that's something that looked a little bit different compared to last season, where we saw even like Juan Jesus was pressing quite a bit in the opponent's half.
Yeah. And even too, like, just, I think it's more to like, we were trying to see it last year, but Conte, it's 1 year, like players take time to adjust to like new systems, new ways and stuff. Now you see Conte's plan in effect. And that's why too, I think too, like, I'm not trying to like go off topic, but that's why I feel like people, why is Juan Jesus starting? Because he knows what Conte wants. I don't think guys like Bukama and even Lang and stuff are up, and even now there's two which they said that he was gonna, like, he has to approve on defense, are not up to the way Conte wants to play the system and play the way it is. And that's why too, even like with Kevin De Bruyne too, he was playing as more of a kind of like a false nine, like a center forward too. Even when we took off Lucca at the end, he was still doing that. He was still on goal kicks. He was still high up. And we even saw too, guys like Lucca backtracking, playing as like a right back at one point. So it's more like that Conte needs to trust these guys defensively before I feel like they can play, like, and start constantly. And the way they've been playing, even to the way against Sassuolo, they looked like a different team compared to what we saw in the preseason, which preseason is everyone's rusty, trying to get into form. But the way they were pressing, the way that they were quick to the ball, and there's a lot of times too where a player would have the ball and you go, oh no, the player's going to shoot. But they would close them down quickly. And it's just constant pressure on these teams. And that's how you wear teams down. And I think this formation too, even the way we defend, as much as people want to like give stick to Politano, he's really good defensively. He's a really good defensive player. And that's one thing I've always given him credit for. He may not be the best defensively because he might be just one dimensional, but you can knock his defensive ability. And that's why he's constantly in these lineups, because Conte trusts him on defense. And even too, like, I was going to agree with that point too. We saw times where either the left back, Oliveira or Di Lorenzo, would push into midfield, kind of playing as like that second CDM role, or give like options for Lucca to tuck in, to play between the center backs, give them that space and stuff. And yeah, it's just the way this formation is. It's really interesting to see how it kind of folds out, because you see as a 4-4-1-1, but when you watch the game, it's 20 different formations in the game because of the way that Conte likes to defend, the way that you have to press in this certain situation. And it's all going to depend on the teams we play, because when you play a team, especially like a team like Sassuolo, they got some quality players on their team. Even they got promoted, but they still have guys like Baradi, who's a Serie A proven player. Loyante, who's a very good player. Pinamonti, he's coming off his best season with Genoa. They got some guys that they can cause problems. And the fact that Conte realized, okay, we have Baradi, which Baradi, the whole game was invisible. Loyante had that one chance. Their best player, you can argue, was Doig, who was causing the most problems, where we kind of fell asleep on backtracking, but he's also one of the fastest players in the league, it seems like. This guy has got wheels. And the way that Conte adjusted, especially in the second half, it was unbelievable. It was a defensive, in my opinion, defensive masterclass, where we weren't really like tested real much, but that's the best games where your goalies are not tested. And when they are, they're making saves that they're supposed to be making.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. Like, I'm showing a couple of the formations. Obviously, I'm not capturing every little nuance, and there's a lot of slight adjustments. Like, one example, you mentioned Doig, who I agree. I thought he had a fantastic match. I was really impressed with his play. Another Scottish player in Serie A doing well. It looked like Politano was basically tasked with man-marking him. So because there were times where Politano would be inside of Di Lorenzo was out wide. It was mostly because he was just tracking Doig.
Yeah.
But you're right. And to the point, on the point of Lucca dropping, that's a good segue to the last formation I had here, which was what happens when the opponent beats the press. So what we see is basically everybody drops. So the back five, they all retreat. The one slight difference is after the midfielders drop, so does De Bruyne. So he's no longer, he presses high, he plays alongside Lucca when we're pressing in the opponent's half. And when they get past the press, then he drops into a line of four with the other three midfielders. And Lucca drops a little bit to be the sole striker up top that we can play the long ball to or hold up. So what that means is that we then defend inside our own half in a 5-4-1. And again, this is pretty much identical to what we've seen from Conte's teams. And that's really the main point that I wanted to emphasize, because when you see like a 4-1-4-1 on paper, it looks like this crazy new idea. And it is still innovative in the sense that Conte is finding a way to get all four of these midfielders on the pitch. But I do like that he's doing it in a way that's not compromising on his kind of key principles and how he wants to defend and how he wants to attack. And obviously that worked because we won the match. We hardly conceded any chances. I didn't check the XG in the match, but I imagine Sassuolo's was pretty low, probably close to zero. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the individual performances from this match, because with all the talk of De Bruyne coming to Napoli, I don't think anyone kind of forgot about McTominay, but he quickly reminded us that he is still the reigning Serie A MVP. Scored another.
He's a king.
Yeah, he picked up exactly where he left off last season.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah, no, even with like De Bruyne coming in, people forgetting about McTominay, like, oh, we got the KDB. It's like, guys, we already have a great team. We're just adding a world class, probably the best midfielder in our, maybe in the 2010s, you can argue, and especially one of the best ones I've ever seen in my life. McTominay's class, like he's a class player. He's gonna do it all for the team. Like no matter what, Conte can play him striker, he'll play striker. He might even score a couple goals here and there. So like people who are forgetting about McTominay, like it's, for me, it's a little, maybe in my opinion, maybe a little bit disrespectful, because McTominay, you can argue like, okay, first half of the season he was still finding his feet, but the second half of the season he was the best player in the league, like MVP for sure. And adding KDB to it, it's just like, it's like getting a Ferrari and then like, you know what? Let's add let's fix the engine, make it a little faster. That's what it is. And I loved the fact that when McTominay scored, KDB was one of the first ones there, and then vice versa. When KDB scored, first one you see running towards him, McTominay. And for me, I'm gonna go off the edge with my player of the match. I thought Rachmani was unbelievable, in my opinion. But besides that one play, I thought Anguissa was fantastic. And I said it too. I jokingly said it in our chat. I said, guys, there's a chance for me, if he has 6 goals, maybe a couple assists here and there, but Napoli wins Scudetto, I could see Anguissa being an MVP candidate because of the way, especially the way he was playing in the preseason. It looked like what he found his form. Like he was winning every ball that was near him, winning a lot of duels. He was just very strong on the ball. He was making great plays, doing his thing. He was dribbling past players. And he showcased it against Sassuolo. For me, he was one of the best players on the pitch. And he had that one chance too, that same kind of play almost, where he almost scored against Parma, where he flicked it over an opponent player. I can't remember the exact one now for Sassuolo, but he won a foul after. And for me, he was probably, outside of maybe McTominay and KDB, I would put him and Rachmani as my 2 players that I was very happy with and the way that they played. I thought everyone played great. But for me, Zambo and Rachmani, once again, unsung heroes in my opinion, were the 2 players that I was very much happy with. That, and I wouldn't even be mad if they gave those guys the Player of the Match award as well.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't really any bad performances. There's one that was maybe not the greatest that we'll get to in a minute. But I mean, Rachmani, I'm glad he's finally getting some praises, because for a long time he wasn't, but he's been so consistent, so good. There was there was one chance in the second half. I can't remember. I think it was Federa that came off the bench, and he actually looked like
he
a decent threat for
spark,
Sassuolo. I didn't even know he moved to it. I think it was with Como last season, if I'm not mistaken. And
I believe so. I think he got loaned out to Sassuolo.
And he beat Di Lorenzo, but Rachmani was covering behind and slid and blocked the shot. And there were he makes so many of those types of plays that they're not going to make the highlight reel necessarily.
But they're key plays.
They're key plays. And Guy said they were talking about on the broadcast where he's continually improved. And now he's kind of gotten to a point where, in a way, I mean, nobody's like Lobotka, but in the sense that what they said was that he doesn't waste a touch, right? Every touch, every pass is meaningful, and I tend to agree with that. And then you just add just the physicality and the work rate and the stamina and on occasion the skill. So another guy that probably should get more praises. I kind of do agree though with McTominay as the man of the match. He got the goal.
He was a key factor in the second goal as well. I think he won
the foul that led to the goal. Yeah. That's right. He hit the bar as well. He had another shot from outside the area.
What a goal that would
Yeah. So I'm totally fine with McTominay winning man of the match. The other player, obviously, that everybody had their eyes on was De Bruyne. What did you make of his debut for Napoli?
It took him a moment to settle in. There was a few first maybe 15 minutes or so that you could say like, okay, it was a little like off and stuff. But there was one play where I wish he would have scored because, in my opinion, if he would have scored, man of the match, hands down. Where he all of a sudden what a ball he gave to Rachmani. Out of all the players, I wish it was Lucca in that situation because it would have been 1-0 at that point. But Rachmani scuffed the finish. Like a player like him, he should do better. Especially Rachmani. This guy, for some reason, he's got a cannon of a shot. We've seen it a few times. He's very good in the air. It's just whatever. It's a little rust. I'll give him that. He made up for it
as well, if I'm not mistaken. So.
I believe so. Yeah. He made up for it, so that's fine. He did a lot of things that he made up for that. And like once he set that ball, even the first shot, like you're like, okay, that was cool, but it would have been cool if he scored. But once he made that pass, then you can see, okay, you know what, he's finding his form. And then everyone wants to, I know it's a goalie mistake, but the fact that he could put that ball into an area like that to make a goalie hesitate, it's the quality, man. You're not paying for, he may not be the quickest, he may not be the most fit, but you're paying for his quality. And he showed a lot of quality against Sassuolo, and it's his first game. He's always going to get better. A player like him can only get better. You know what they say, form is temporary, class is permanent, and he's got class. And I think, in my opinion, he was really good, and we've seen him from the couple of preseason games. Not looking as great, and then you get that one clip where everyone judged him on that. But all of a sudden, the last few preseason games, he looked like his old self, and even this game, slowly but surely, he got into the game. And when if he's going to play like he did in the second, and mainly the second half, it's Kevin De Bruyne. Like at the end of the day, there's not words to describe what he is, because you just have to watch him and be amazed with what he does. And I thought he played okay. Like in my opinion, I thought he played okay, and I'm excited to see him improve and week in and week out, hopefully.
Yeah, I think there's room for improvement, mostly with respect to the chemistry he has with his teammates. You could see that they weren't perfectly aligned just yet, and you can't fault him. It's the first game of the season. Preseason is different. They're still kind of learning each other's movements. It's not as automatic as the connection that Politano and Di Lorenzo have, or some of these other players. But that'll come. Like that's just a matter of time. But you did see the vision and the creativity with some of these passes. That one.
Sometimes it was even too amazing for the players. Like
there's still no. You're absolutely right. The other players, chemistry involves two players, right? And so they still have to kind of open up to his vision and start to understand the way he thinks, so that they can make the movements that he's kind of expecting, right? So I completely agree with that. The goal, you may say that's a bit of luck, but that's also a lot of experience. And that's something you're kind of taught to do anyways, where that was a cross first and foremost, but you play the cross in a way that it's curling towards the back post because the keeper can't react to it. And you played as a goalkeeper, you know this, until it's too late because the keeper has to be waiting to see if anyone gets a touch on it.
Touched her, yeah, exactly.
And if nobody does, and you play that cross that's curling towards the back post and it bounces through, often the keeper's stuck on his line.
Momentum, yeah.
Exactly, and that ball's going to end up in the back of the goal. So that was just an example of his experience. Michele and Henry Bell on In the Shadow of Vesuvio kind of described him as an attacking Lobotka, and I think that's really a great way to describe it, right? Where he kind of plays that role in the attacking phase that Lobotka does in the defensive phase or in our half. Even when, the same way that Lobotka talked about the tactics earlier, but the same way that Lobotka drops between the center backs, De Bruyne presses between the opposition center backs, right? So I really do like that description of him. Obviously, he's a unique player. The other player I want to get your thoughts on is Lorenzo Lucca, because obviously that was the other big story. Lukaku, we now know he's going to miss 3 to 4 months. He's probably not coming back until January. So we were forced to throw in Lucca at striker. We're going to talk about the Mercato and Hojlund and whoever else might come in at striker and in other positions. But, I saw him getting criticized by quite a few people online. And do you think that's fair for, not to make this a loaded question, but for a guy who was forced to start in a situation that he was never planned to be the starter for?
Yeah. You know what? There's going to be some criticism. And even too, I'll be honest, I had a couple. Wasn't really, even when we first got him, I was always hesitant of, especially more the price, because we're paying close to 40 million for him. His first game, he did a lot of good things. Like there was a stat that they kept showing, and he was one of I believe it was the most distance traveled or something in the match. Like he had close to Lobotka numbers, which is for a striker, that's unbelievable. So there was one chance during the game that he should have scored. That chance, it was, I want to say Politano hit the post or so, and then the rebound's right there, and he kind of fluffed the finish. So yeah, I think that chance, besides that chance, which I think he should have scored, he wasn't really that bad. He did well. He had it looked like his dribbling was on point. His link up play was really good. He was dropping in. So he did okay. For a striker to not get a goal, he did okay. But you want him to do better, and I think he will as the games go on. I think he just got to get confident, and it's kind of it's not his fault in a way that he was just he wasn't expecting to start. But you know what? Now he knows that he's the starter. He's gonna have to show up now. So I think as the match days go on, you're gonna see an improvement for him. But his debut, there's some criticism. I get it. First game, first few games, you gotta give these guys some time to adjust to the system. Just some of these guys are still in preseason form, and especially it's Italy. These guys, everyone's off in the middle of August, so give these guys a couple of weeks to improve and stuff. I'll be more lenient on him this week. I know last week it was just more in the game, you're in the moment more. But if you're thinking about his overall performance and rewatching the match, he did do well in a lot of aspects. It's just you wish you would have gotten a goal or so. But you know what? I'll give him a lot of credit though. On the second goal, him and McTominay, you can argue the two tallest players on the pitch, both attacked that ball, and you could tell he drew out Torati where Lucca was running in for the header. And you could see that, I don't know if he maybe if he did get a touch, the slice of touches, but you know what? Let's give the goal to Kevin De Bruyne, please. So you could tell that he influenced that play, because it's you got this guy who's 6'7", and the goalie's got to worry about if he's going to make contact, it's in the back of the net. But if I don't play this ball, it might go in the back of the net, or I might get lucky and it hits the post. So he kind of influenced that goal too. He kind of got maybe an unofficial assist, in terms of him trying to attack that ball, trying to flick on. And who knows? Maybe he tried to fake a header, so he knows Kevin De Bruyne is going to whip it back post. If I potentially get a header to it, it's going to go in the back of the net. But if I whiff on it, the goalie's going to be stuck in no man's land. So there's a lot of things that he did do well, but I just wish he would have maybe gotten that goal, or maybe gotten a chance, like a one-on-one chance, to really prove what we have in him.
Yeah, a goal would have been great for his confidence as well. Not just the second goal, but he had a big hand, in my opinion, on the first goal as well, because if you watch it back, and so did obviously Politano with the perfect cross, but Lucca makes the run kind of towards the center of the goal, and he pulls both of the center backs with him. And that's why McTominay, who then ran into that space, and McTominay, I mean, we talked about him, but like, he has such a great ability to get into the right place at the right time, and then he can finish as well, perfect header. But he wouldn't have been that open had it not been for Lucca making the run more towards the center, or even to the back post. He also drew both of the yellow cards on Kone, so I think he gets he should have been cautioned in the first half for what was a very obvious yellow card offense, but I think then the one they gave him the yellow card for was hardly a foul. So I think that was a bit of a makeup kind of yellow card in the start of the second half. Like De Bruyne, I do think there's still some growing pain. There's still some acclimatization happening. Yeah. He's still building that chemistry with his teammates, and he's still learning how to play the role Conte wants him to play, because I don't think he's accustomed to dropping that deep and holding up. You're right. He ran. When I saw that stat pop up on the screen, I remember they cut to Lobotka and Lucca on the bench together, and then they pulled up like the running stats, and it was like Lobotka led the team with 10 kilometers and Lucca was like 9.5. Yeah, I'm sure by the end of the match, probably McTominay and Anguissa and maybe even De Bruyne probably all just weird because it's like past them. But yeah,
wow, like
you don't realize how much he's running out there playing at striker.
Yeah,
which is looks good. Like sometimes
like, you want your striker. Like I was always even just watching the sport, like listening to like coaches and stuff. Especially as a goalie, they said like too, like it's like for your striker, you want your striker to be involved in as much as possible in the game, just so they don't get like either cold or they're just not mentally into it. Which a striker, you need to be few things. You need to be cold, in my opinion, like just in terms of like no pressure. You don't get pressure; it doesn't get to you. But you have to be mentally checked in all the time. It's like a goalie. You have to be mentally checked in, because if you're checked out, mistakes happen, and then you're just whatever. You're down, or you're gonna miss a chance or so. And him being in the game, that's a great thing. Even I would love to see that stat all the time, that he's one of the most like ran players on the team, because it shows that he's in the game and he's gonna score. Like good things, you're gonna get rewarded for doing the little things, and that's one thing. That's why I'm confident in his ability. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, he's gonna score 40 goals," but if he can score when he has to, I'm more than happy with that.
I was hoping he would score. Knowing the type of striker that he is and the confidence that he has, he was probably disappointed to not having scored, even though we won the match. I mean, again, you want your strikers to be the story I always tell is my brother is a striker. He was a striker his whole life. And he used to always say, and this is going to sound horrible, but it's what you want for a striker. But he used to always say, I'd rather score and lose than not score and win, which is like, but that's the mentality you want your strikers to have.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want
it's a good mentality too.
But they're killers. They need to be scoring. You're right. They need to be cold so that when those chances present, and there are sometimes matches where you only get one or two decent chances in a match, you need to be able to take it when it comes. And I do think he has that ability. And it would just so happen that in this match, he didn't get that many chances. One thing, if I could criticize Conte, like who am I to criticize Conte? But I did. Even I was on Dan and Mario Bowen's show, Napoli Nation TV, which I highly recommend everybody check out.
Yep.
But they asked me as well about what my predicted starting 11 was, and I flip flopped on this, and I still got it wrong. But that episode you mentioned earlier with Vincenzo and Gianluca, I was predicting just typical 4-3-3, just copy what we did last season, because those patterns are already known by the players. What do they call them in Italy? Automatisms, or like they've already memorized the movements, right? It's second nature. And then I was kind of leaning towards like the 4-4-1-1 or 4-1-4-1 from what we saw in the friendlies. then Lukaku got hurt, then I immediately went, okay, we're definitely playing 4-3-3 again, because to me, Lucca is best used as a classic number 9, where you're just crossing the ball into him, and he's great in the air. He's so big. Yeah. Good things are going to happen. And I do kind of wish we did a little bit more of that. I'm nitpicking because we won the match 2-0. We dominated. There was never any threat. We were in complete control. But we'll see if Conte makes some tweaks. I mean, again, like you said earlier, there's the tactics, but then there's also sort of the game planning, which is specific to the opponent. You mentioned the goalkeepers, or I did. I mentioned one player that maybe didn't cover himself in glory, and that was, in my opinion, Alex Meret. Now, I think we're going to have, I should just caveat this by saying we're probably going to have a goalkeeper debate all season long.
Hell yeah.
But, he was hardly tested in this match, and the one decent shot that was on the target, he kind of fumbled it a bit, and he was bailed out by Oliveira. There was a moment where all of our hearts stopped for a second, where he I can't remember who played the ball back to him, and he almost, actually, I think Pinamonti did block it, but it kind of spun off his foot and went out for a throw-in, and we all had flashbacks of the Empoli match from a couple of seasons ago, where literally...
Funny enough, I think it was Pinamonti too,
It was, yeah, it was Pinamonti that did it. It was that, what was it, a 3-1 or 3-2 Empoli victory over us late in the season. So I see that, and then also he had a couple of we all know Meret's not great with his feet, and he kind of showed it again. There were not like terrible passes, but there was one for Politano that ended up going out to touch. There was one where he tried to play it first time, and it just kind of went straight up in the air, but Anguissa was there for it. There was a pass to either Rachmani or Di Lorenzo on the right side that was kind of behind them, and like most of the time the players get out of these situations because they're good enough to. But I did kind of walk away from that match wondering, is Conte looking at this thinking, okay, maybe I'll give Milinkovic-Savic a shot for the next one against Cagliari? What did you make of Meret's performance?
Yeah, so he didn't have much to do, but when he was called upon, there was a couple of moments I'm like, oh no, I'm like this guy's making me nervous already. And especially as a goalkeeper, you need your goalie to be confident. And I know Conte, okay, maybe Meret, he was never the most confident goalie, but one thing in the last few years, he never had someone breathing down his back. But outside of maybe Ospina, ever since Ospina left, he was the clear number one. But now he's got that extra pressure, okay, I can't make a mistake or so, or I can't play poorly because I got Milinkovic-Savic, who you can argue is probably a better fundamental goalkeeper, but the stats don't prove it because the team wise. So I think I personally think he might go with Milinkovic-Savic this week, and then you go, okay, you know what? Let's see what happens, because if I don't like the way he plays, then after the international break, I go with Meret. But I think Milinkovic-Savic can do well. He does well, makes some saves. He's more confident, which in crosses, when teams cross, he's more controlling. He's a bigger goalie. He takes up more of the net. And you know what? And it's funny too. I think strikers are more scared when they see Savic in the net than they are where they see Meret, because of the size of the different goalkeepers. But just the way even Savic looks, he looks like he's pissed off and he wants to just come at you all the time. And that plays a factor too. In the striker, you got to make the striker or the player who's about to score or potentially take a shot, make them feel uncomfortable, because that's how you put them off. Then you can make a nice save and then just throw them off their game. And for me, especially his passing ability, I'm more comfortable with Milinkovic-Savic's passing ability than I am with Meret, because Meret's never been the most gifted passer. At least Savic, he can ping a ball. He can kick a goal kick out for another goal kick, how powerful his kicks are. And there's a clip too with I believe it was against Carpi in the Coppa Italia, where took a free kick and hit the bar. And even too, today, Napoli posted, I believe it was today, they posted a training video of Savic taking a shot. He curled it like he was a midfielder. So for me, I feel more confident with Savic in the net, but I I can respect Conte's decision if you want to go with Meret because he's been there longer. He's won 2 Scudettos with Napoli. He was a goalie last year, and I know you don't want to change right away, especially coming off a clean sheet. I personally can see Savic starting this weekend against Cagliari just because of the way they play, because they got more guys that can probably cross the ball. They're probably going to sit back, counter. So you need a guy, and you know what? For me, you need a guy that can potentially break the lines. And why not? If your goalie is able to break a line with his passing ability, with just the way he is, especially free kicks too. If you have a free kick in the defensive side, you can give Savic the free kick and let the players push up. So it's going to be there's going to be debates all year, and especially too, you see it online with Twitter and stuff like this, debates left, right, center. I even got into one a little bit, but I can see both sides of the story. But for me, especially playing the position, I feel more confident with Savic in the net than I do with Meret. But that doesn't mean to say like I could be wrong. But that's just the way I see it, especially too with Savic. I feel like he can make saves, a lot more quicker saves, especially the ones that we see where they take a free kick and Meret's just standing there looking at the ball going in. He would go to that because he's able to, because he's got the reflexes, he's got the arm length, and he's just a bigger goalie, and he takes up more than that. So we'll see what happens. But for me, I feel much more confident, especially this past week where Meret, all he had to do was just catch it, go down, he fumbles it. Even too, there was one shot where Doig, instead of saving it and comfortably, saved it, and the rebound was still there. But luckily, it wasn't as much as the one that he rolled, and Oliveira had to clean up. So just a few mistakes here and there, and who knows? Maybe Meret's feeling the pressure of like another goalie like on the bench that can easily take his spot.
Yeah, I looked up the XG a moment ago, and it was 1.2 to 0.4. So Sassuolo hardly had anything. He's still going to get the clean sheet. Statistically, that's still true. But yeah, I do wonder if Conte is going to play Milinkovic-Savic for the Cagliari match. Patrick Hendrick mentioned it on the broadcast that the only taller player than Lorenzo Lucca in the league is Vanya Milinkovic-Savic. Yeah. And, for anyone who watched or saw the scores or the highlights of the first round, Cagliari got a late draw against Fiorentina. So not an easy match for Cagliari, obviously. And it was 2 ex-Napoli players that combined. Gianluca Gaetano playing the cross.
Oh, free, well, you could say like players from Napoli or
Mandragora opened the scoring.
Yeah,
and I'm drawing a blank on the center back that scored. Luperto, thank you.
The one I said that looks like Raf Rispo.
And seeing that, I would much rather have Vanya in goal to come out and try to punch that away.
Yeah,
being big and strong and intimidating, like you mentioned, versus Meret, who absolutely would have stood on his line in that situation.
Exactly.
I mean, he's a good enough shot stopper that maybe he would have kept it out, but maybe he wouldn't have. So I do wonder, we're not going to really do a preview of the Cagliari match, but I do wonder, I think that might be the only kind of questionable position on the pitch. I think everybody else is pretty much set in stone based on the way that match went. And the only thing I would say, just a couple of final thoughts before we move on to the Mercato. One is that it is a little bit unfortunate because I think, in my opinion, David Neres had the best preseason out of any Napoli player, and this system requires us to remove a winger to make room for that fourth midfielder, and unfortunately he's the guy that was removed. So I would like to see him play more, but again, it's going to be a long season with tons of matches. He's going to get his minutes. We still managed to see a Noah Lang appearance, which was pretty similar to his appearances in the preseason. Nothing really to write home about it. He only got a couple minutes. What I was most excited about, I'm sure you were excited as well, was Antonio Vergara appearance, a guy that we've both been following for some time, and a guy that came through the Napoli youth system since he was like 12 years old. And that was I was
very happy.
Yeah. I don't think he touched the ball, but I was still
you know what? Check the stats.
Did he get a touch?
2 passes out of 2.
Oh, there you go. 100% pass completion. But it was just the fact that he got on the pitch. And actually, Conte confirmed he's staying.
Good.
I think the club is offering him a contract extension with an increase, so they obviously see the value in him.
Yeah.
And it just makes sense. Like, again, we're going to get to the Mercato in a minute, but because he's a club race player, it does not affect the number of players we have in the squad whatsoever. So,
And I think he's under 22 as well. I think he's 22. So
yeah, actually, he checks
you could put him
boxes. Exactly.
Yeah, and he's a talented player. Like I never like. I really liked that he was on loan for 2 years. That's the one thing I really liked, that he went on loan 2 years. His first year, I felt so bad because I want to say he suffered a serious injury. I don't know what the exact extent was. I just remember seeing he was out for the year, but he came back last year. You can argue he was probably one of the best players in Serie B last year. He was gifted, unbelievable. Watching his clips, watching some highlights, even some matches too. He was unbelievable last year, and I'm very happy that Napoli, they could have just said, you know what, let's loan him to a Serie B team again, whatever. But the fact that Conte has trust in him shows that this kid's a talented player. For Conte to say he's staying, and yeah, no, I'm not gonna get into the Mercato right now, but for him to stay shows that he's such a gifted player. Even Hassa too, he showed some signs too in the preseason. So I wouldn't be surprised if they both stay. But Vergara, for me, especially watching from the Primavera, where he was one of my favorite players to watch, such a gifted player, and I'm very happy that he's staying with Napoli.
I haven't checked Hassa's age, if he falls in that sort of under 22 category as well. If
I think he's 21. I think he's 21.
Then you can see the argument for him staying, as well as a third option at Regista in case Lobotka or Gilmore get hurt, which they both did at one point last season. Or Lobotka did, and Gilmore missed most of the preseason with injury. So otherwise, I would rather see Hassa loaned out just to get more minutes. But yeah, I think the conditions are perfect for Vergara to stay. Maybe even Hassa, because we're going to lose Anguissa in January for AFCON, so we'll see what happens there. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to the Mercato, is there was also an interesting moment at halftime where we saw Giuntoli, of all people, Cristiano Giuntoli, greeting Giovanni Manna in the stands. So our former sporting director, who's currently unemployed after getting the sack at Juventus, greeting our current sporting director, who was formerly of Juventus. Actually, I guess Giuntoli replaced Manna in a way, or he was the U23. I guess.
Yeah, so I think Napoli had the idea of appointing Manna after. Right. Even before we did, I think they wanted to, but I think he wanted to continue that project with the 23 because I think he thought he was gonna I'm gonna be part of the staff, and then hey, you know what? Let's make you our actual sporting director. Okay.
Yeah.
See you guys.
So far so good. And if that wasn't crazy enough of a moment to begin with, on top of that, Manna's wearing a full walking boot, and if anyone's wondering what happened there, apparently he tore his Achilles playing Calcetto. So he ended up having. Yeah, he ended up having surgery to repair it, so it must have been pretty bad. Fortunately, he can still do his job, even if he's just walking on.
Okay, I can help him out if you want.
So speaking of Manna, let's talk a little bit. We don't have a ton of time, but I think we can cover the main stories on the Mercato. Which, if anyone hears us joking about Danny stressing out, this is the Danny we're talking about. But so far, it's looking pretty good. Obviously, the big story is Rasmus Hojlund. The latest reports, and maybe you can give me an update because I haven't checked a whole lot today, but the latest reports were that the club is negotiating a loan with option or obligation to buy. It sounds like it's going to be a conditional obligation, so it'll be like a €5 million loan with a obligation to buy for €40 million, but it'll be conditional on a few different things. One that seems to be agreed on is Champions League qualification. Fine. Another one that they're, I think, still negotiating is number of appearances. And I think Napoli wanted to also have a condition on the number of goals he scored, whereas I think United, going off of their own experience, don't want that condition, understandably. One, do you think they'll get this deal across the finish line? And two, do you think Hojlund is the right player to bring in?
Yeah, so as of now, I do believe it's going to be an option with the obligation depending on certain things. I do believe Napoli want I think United want them to do the Champions League one for sure. Napoli want to do appearances, but United don't want the appearance. So that's right there. They're saying, and even too, I read a report just before I came on, that they're going to talk more tonight, and they expect it to be agreed upon either tonight or tomorrow, and then by Saturday they might even announce them on like at the stadium. But yeah, no, I think this deal will get done because Napoli, we're in desperate need of a backup striker. We can't go with Lucca until January, and especially because we have our backups as Ambrosino, who's not really proven to be a Napoli level player just yet, and Chidera, who don't even get me started with him. Guy is not even close to a Napoli player, but I think this one will get done, especially because if Conte is pushing it, which I read reports that he is pushing it to be completed. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good. I think it'll be a good signing for Napoli because it's for me, a low risk, high reward because he's only 22. He's played in Serie A before. And as much as his numbers don't reflect his price tag that United paid for, which United, in the end, they always overpay for these type of players, he still scores goals. He has, I believe he had 14 and 10 in all competitions in the past 2 years. But the one stat I was very happy with is in Europe. He's a proven goal scorer in Europe, and that's one thing that we need because I don't think guys like Lucca have that. Like they haven't played in Europe yet. So one thing that I really liked about Hojlund is he's scored goals in Champions League. He scored goals in the Europa League run. So right there, like you're more paying for a player to potentially take the pressure off of Lucca. If I want to say that as well. Both young players, they're both going to improve. And it's if there's any any coach in the world that I trust, maybe outside of Gasparini to develop a striker, it's Conte because he's proven that the strikers he does like and that he does want to come in always have a decent record for him, and that's why I think it could be a solid signing for Napoli.
That's a great point on the European goals. I think if he can get anywhere near the form that he had at Atalanta, I think it makes sense to make this deal. The fact that these are the reports that they're down to negotiating kind of the conditions of an obligation suggests to me that it's more a matter of when he's going to arrive, not if he's going to arrive. I think there are a lot of reasons. You mentioned some of them to want him. It's a guy that Conte wanted even before. I think had we not been in this predicament at the striker position, we probably wouldn't have been willing to pay so much for him. But, you know, this is the situation we're in. So we're going to have to take a little bit more risk here. And I think so far all indications are that De Laurentiis is willing to put his money forward, or I don't want to say where his mouth is, but you know, he made promises to Conte, so he seems to be willing to deliver on those promises. And I think it's the right move. The one that I'm a little bit skeptical of now is Juanlu. He was a guy we've been linked to all summer. Sevilla have registered barely a starting lineup because of their financial situation. So there's motivation for them to sell because they can generate some cash, and that will allow them to register some of the other players that they have. But at the same time, the reports are that neither party is kind of budging on the price. I think Napoli got up to something like 16, 17 million. I think Sevilla wanted 20. He even started for Sevilla in the last round of La Liga and actually played quite well, which may not be well for us too, right? As far as he got an assist. I watched the highlights and he looked like he was very involved. He almost scored a goal. So I'll frame it this way. Like, again, one, do you think we'll get this deal done? And if not, would you be disappointed given that the alternatives are guys like Zanoli, who seems destined to go to Udinese, is just kind of waiting. And actually, even Khedira, don't be fooled by him suiting up for
I think he's gone
this season. He was supposed to have his medicals. They just postponed them because of the striker situation, but he's supposed to go to Udinese as well.
Yeah.
But the alternatives, if we don't bring Juanlu in as the backup to Di Lorenzo, are Zanoli and Mazzocchi. So would you be disappointed if we had to settle for one of those guys?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, because one, fair play to Mazzocchi. He's one guy that I would love to have in the locker room, but he's not. If we're going to push, especially for Champions League, he's not one guy I feel confident in, because for me, if you want to make a nice run in Champions League, you need quality players all around. And okay, if it was a 1 game a week, okay, you know what? I'll suck it up, whatever. Especially with Zanioli, because I think Zanioli could potentially do well in Serie A. But if we're going to push, especially in Champions League, in the league, maybe even in Coppa Italia, you need guys that can step up. And when you take out Di Lorenzo, you don't lose quality, because I think for me, Juanlu, he's got certain similarities to Di Lorenzo. He may not be better than Di Lorenzo in the defensive aspect, but in terms of getting forward and full back wise, creating chances, he's up there. He's really good. Like in 2 games, I'll say 1 assist, but he got the assist on the own goal that Getafe scored. I believe it was Getafe that they scored. And for me, he's one guy I've been following since we were linked with, especially watching him in the under 21s. He would be really good for us, especially playing to guys like Lucca's strength, where he can come out, like he can come in. You can even play him right mid, center mid. He's played a few times last year. He could cross the ball, he can create chances, and he can find players. So that's one I would be really disappointed with. And more so because we did have an agreement with him. He was supposed to travel to do his medical, do everything. All of a sudden, Sevilla goes, "No, you know what? I want 20 million because Wolverhampton is offering 20. So give me 20 million and give me a sell-on clause." Napoli are not going to do that, because they're smart, because they know they have to sell. The player is pushing the move. They wanted 17, and now they're stuck in a tunnel, especially because with Lukaku, now the priority is going to be moved on finding a striker, which it seems like they're going to hopefully land Hojlund. And then they're pushing for a midfielder as well. So I think if it does get done, it'll probably be a deadline day, like September 1st. You'll see like Napoli agree, whatever. But the more the days go on, the more I don't have confidence in this deal happening. It could happen in January, but I just don't think this move will happen in September, in the summer Mercato. But if it does happen, I could see it happening the last days of the Mercato.
Yeah, like obviously we'd be better with him than without him. I think we're probably playing chicken a little bit right now, because we need him a lot less than Sevilla need to raise some funds. Yeah. So we might just be waiting them out a little bit to see what happens. But he's an interesting player. I agree with you. He's very, again, judging by the highlights and some of the U21 Spanish stuff that I've seen, he's a very attack-minded player for a fullback, very good on the ball. So I can see why Conte wants that type of player. I suppose we also have Spinazzola, but there's been some talks that he could end up leaving as well. We'll see. Obviously, right now the top priority is Hojlund, so all these other deals are kind of on the back burner. The last one I'll get your thoughts on is Elmas, who seems pretty close to returning, which is such a rare thing for Napoli to have a player come back. But I think it's a bit of a different circumstance in other situations. Most players, when they leave Napoli, it's after they've had a big blow up with De Laurentiis, where Elmas has been nothing but a good story for us, right? Like he played many years for us. He won a Scudetto with us. By the time we sold him, his transfer fee was fully amortized, so we made a big plusvalenza by selling him to Leipzig. He seems to really want to come back to Napoli. Obviously, it hasn't worked out in Germany for him. He's hardly played. And if he does come back, the numbers they're talking about are like 10 million euros less than we sold him for. So, and again, it'll probably be like a loan with option to buy. So this only seems to make sense. And I think, like, I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. It's easy to forget how young he is, because he joined Napoli at such a young age and he's been around for so long for a young guy. But I think the combination of his work ethic and willingness to run and Antonio Conte means that we could get the best version of Elmas if he plays under Antonio Conte. How are you feeling about an Elmas return?
Oh, I love it. That guy, I've always liked Elmas, and it sucked that we sold him. But at the end of the day, there was no. It's kind of like a similar story to Raspadori, where I don't think we were playing him in his best positions, but I'll give him credit. He would come off the bench. He would just play like a monster, and he was gifted. He's a gifted player, and the fact that he still posts about Napoli, his profile picture on Instagram is still him kissing the Scudetto badge, even though he joined Torino, Leipzig. He could have put a Macedonia one, but he chose the Napoli kissing the. And you could tell he still loves the city, and he's not one type of player where we're hopeful. I'm hoping it's a 99% chance that we're going to bring him back. He's going to play for the badge. And that's one thing that Conte likes. He likes guys, when they come on, they give 110%, 120%, which Elmas always has. There's times where you go, is he a replacement for Kvaratskhelia? No, because he's not a born winger. But if we're going to do this 4-4-1-1, it's going to be tough for me to remember this one now, especially 4-3-3 though my whole life, basically. But he's that type of player that he can play for McTominay. He could come in for McTominay, do his job, like do the same thing he does, where he can be on the left. And we saw with Torino, I believe he had like 5 or 6 goals for Torino or something like that. Like, he was on fire for Torino. And it's not like, okay, he was scoring tap-ins, he was scoring penalties. The goals he would score, there were one of them against Bologna, where Meg Bukama, funny enough, was one of the best goals he scored all year. And then another goal, he curled it, placed it perfectly. I want to say it was against Verona or so. But with Torino, he was unbelievable. So if we could get that type of Elmas back, especially like the ones that we saw with the Spalletti, the first Scudetto year, where he was coming off the bench, he was scoring goals. That's the Elmas that we need. We just need a spark off the bench, which I feel like last year we were missing that. We were missing where we would take off some starters, and then there's just no creativity, because we would have guys like Raspadori, fair play to him. He scored some clutch goals, but then we would bring in Okafor, did nothing. Nagonge did nothing. Simeone did nothing. We didn't have that creative spark off the bench. And now, if we bring in an Elmas, he's that type of guy. He can create a spark off the bench, and if he has to start, he's going to fit right in, because he's the type of player that you give him an opportunity to create, to produce. He's that type. He's going to take that opportunity. So I'm going to be very happy. Hopefully, we get the here we go soon, because I'll be very happy for Elmas to return.
Yeah, I think this is a deal almost every Napoli fan wants to happen. I think if we can get this deal done, aside from maybe the backup right back, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of work to do in January, unless we have like a major injury at another position.
Yeah.
Which is good, because probably since Lobotka, I don't think we've signed a player in January that's really kind of stuck at it.
Yeah, or stayed with us, yeah. No, we haven't.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's always these Dendonker types that they end up just not even playing at all.
Yeah.
So
to be fair, the one we did sign last year helped us win the Scudetto. So
yeah,
that's
sure.
I would have brought him back too. That's one guy I would have brought back too with open arms.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe it was just we were looking at what other options were. There's also talks about Brescianini still being an option. I have a feeling if we get Elmas, I think that's just too many midfielders.
I'll be honest, I think that Brescianini was more superstitious. I think it's more superstitious signing that, you know what, we were linked with Brescianini last year. Atalanta hijacked it. We're going to be linked with him this year. Pray that someone hijacks that deal as well.
It could even have been just like a negotiating tactic. Let's throw this out to the internet to signal to Leipzig that, we're not desperate to get Elmas, and maybe it helps get that deal done. Who knows? But I mean, all in all, it's been a fantastic mercato. I think.
Easily.
Let's get this Hojlund deal done, and then I think everything else is just kind of gravy, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Danny,
I agree.
The time's absolutely flown by, and we are out of time. So I just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. It's always an honor to come on, and especially when you asked me. And the minute I saw Mercato, my eyes lit up. It's only fitting that I had
to squeeze you in before the Mercato ended, because I know how glued to your phone you are when it comes to Mercato.
Funny enough, I haven't checked my phone this whole episode, so
That's why it's so long. It's this whole hour.
It's like my hand's like itching towards grabbing it, but I haven't checked it, so it's all good.
If you want to find Danny, you can find him on X at Danny_1007_. Make sure you put that second underscore at the end because I forgot to do that last time. It's totally different person.
Yeah. Even making my account, I'm like, who the heck took the like? I wanted just the one underscore. It's easier. I'm like, who the hell took? And I saw it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Everybody can go
make
look
sure
that up separately. Put the underscore at the end.
Yeah.
You could also find a lot of his work at Napoli Club TO. Shout out to Steph Trophy as well, who does a lot of the digital stuff for the Napoli Club Toronto. Fantastic photographer as well. If you want to find me, you can find me at Joe_Fischetti5 on X or Forza Napoli podcast on pretty much any social media platform. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find the podcast, the audio version, on Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. I will be back. I'm not going to have many preview episodes this season, but I will be back to review that Cagliari match, our first home match of the season. We'll do that review sometime next week. But until then, I'm Joe Fischetti. Forza Napoli sempre.